There are cars that are born to be desired, others that are born to sell dreams, and there are those that simply should not exist. The Mercedes CLK GTR belongs to this last category. Because it was not created with streets, comfort or regular customers in mind, it exists for one single reason: to win races at any cost. In the 1990s, high-level motorsport was going through a curious moment. The FIA GT Championship promised to put supercars to race on equal terms, but the regulations had a dangerous loophole. To compete in the GT1 category, the manufacturer had to produce a road version of the race car, in limited numbers but real, registered, homologated and sold to the public. And that is exactly where everything went out of control. Porsche had already understood this game with the 911 GT1, McLaren had the F1 as a base, but Mercedes did not have absolutely anything that could fit those rules. So instead of creating a road car and turning it into a race car, Mercedes decided to do the opposite: create a pure race car and then force it to become a road car just to satisfy the regulations. And that is how the CLK GTR was born, a car that has almost nothing to do with the CLK you see at dealerships. Despite the name, it does not share chassis, suspension, architecture or philosophy with any other production Mercedes. The name was used only to satisfy bureaucracy and create the illusion of a connection to an existing model. Development was extremely fast, almost reckless. Mercedes called AMG and brought together engineers from Formula One, because the goal was not to create something balanced, it was to create something dominant. The chassis was an extremely rigid carbon fiber monocoque, the driving position was centralized, and the bodywork was designed exclusively with aerodynamics in mind, with no concern for traditional aesthetics. At the heart of the CLK GTR was a naturally aspirated 6.9-liter V12. Mounted right behind the driver, a brutal and loud engine built to handle constant abuse, producing more than 600 horsepower in race trim, with rear-wheel drive and a sequential gearbox, essentially a Le Mans prototype disguised as a GT car. And the most absurd part is that it worked perfectly. Right from its debut in 1997, the CLK GTR completely destroyed the competition in the FIA GT Championship, winning races in humiliating fashion. Its superiority was so overwhelming that Porsche practically abandoned the category, unable to keep up with the technical level imposed by Mercedes. With the title almost guaranteed, a problem emerged that no one wanted to face. To keep the car homologated, Mercedes had to sell road versions, and this was not optional. It was an obligation imposed by the rules, so the brand was forced to turn that track monster into something minimally usable on public roads. The road-going CLK GTR was born as a completely absurd car for traffic. It kept the carbon monocoque, kept the extremely low driving position, kept the V12, but received small adjustments for emissions, noise and reliability. Even so, it was still basically a race car with license plates. The interior made that very clear: fixed seats, uncomfortable driving position, terrible visibility, almost no sound insulation and virtually no real comfort features. Air conditioning existed, but it was almost symbolic, more to meet requirements than to actually be used. Mercedes produced only 25 units of the Clerk GTR road car, including a few even rarer roadster versions, and each one cost absurd amounts for the time, easily surpassing any Ferrari or Lamborghini available. Even so, selling those units was not easy, because there was no real audience for such an extreme car. And here comes one of the most curious parts of the story. The CLK GTR was so radical that some countries simply refused to homologate it for public road use, which caused several units to be sold essentially as collector items, stored in climate-controlled garages and rarely driven. Over the years, the FIA GT Championship lost relevance. Regulations changed and the CLK GTR completely lost its competitive purpose, but it left behind a massive legacy. It showed how far a manufacturer is willing to go when winning becomes more important than common sense. This car opened the door for other monsters created purely for homologation. Cars that were never meant for the street but ended up becoming legends precisely because of that. Because they were exaggerated, uncomfortable and brutally honest about their origins. Today, a Mercedes CLK GTR is worth tens of millions of dollars, appearing only rarely at auctions, treated more like a work of art than an automobile, and perhaps that is the fairest destiny for a car that never wanted to be civilized. Because in the end, the CLK GTR is not just a rare supercar, it is living proof that some of the greatest legends in the automotive world are not born from passion or luxury, but from pure obsession with winning. And if you enjoy this type of content about the history, technology, and curiosities of the automotive world, Follow the hidden speed channel so you do not miss the next videos. Here, the passion for cars goes far beyond the steering wheel.